Welcome to the Visionary Chronicles, a podcast dedicated to uncovering the strategies and insights that drive innovative, disruptive businesses. Join us as we explore the mindsets, cultures, and solutions powering the next generation of industry leaders and creative trailblazers. Whether you're seeking to inject new life into your organization or spark transformative growth, the Visionary Chronicles is your guide to executable, cutting-edge business strategy. Hello and welcome to the Visionary Chronicles. Thanks for joining us today, or me in particular. I always appreciate your time. Know you're very busy, but hopefully you've enjoyed this series. It's the first series that I've done where it's a visionary leadership, and we had a lot of feedback, a lot of great commentary from it, and I'm very proud to say that this is the final episode in the Road to Visionary Leadership, Chronicle number 9. And today we're going to talk about leaving a legacy. So welcome to the Visionary Chronicles. This will be the final episode in our 9-part series, The Road to Visionary Leadership. And the series has been inspired by a new book I'm going to be releasing in July. Over my shoulder here, you'll see The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries. And it's available for pre-sale now at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Basically, any global retailer right now has it available for pre-sale. So on the pre-release and the reviews, we've been getting some really awesome reviews on the book. So hopefully you'll have a chance to take a look at it as well and would appreciate a review or purchasing the book. We also have it in ebook. And I bring up the ebook because at the end of the podcast, I'll have a nice special offer for everybody, a reward for my listeners. And it'll be an ebook that will be the Visionary Leader that we'll talk about at the end and where to get that as a result of listening to the episode today. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for that as well. So this is a follow-up book to my first best-selling book. Thank you for those that purchased the book. But more importantly, as I always say, it's not just the purchase of the book. It's actually the feedback that I get from the book that's most important to me. Those entrepreneurs, those business leaders that reach out to me, letting me know really how they've applied what I put into the book is of most importance to me. So this is a follow-up to that book, The Visionary Brand, the success formula behind the world's most visionary brands. And we've also created the Visionary Brand Master Course, and that's available at thevisionaryfiles.com. We released that, I'm going to say about 8 to 10 months ago, and we've gotten tremendous feedback on it from both entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, all of those that have been able to apply those principles from the book that we actually put that into video form. So it's almost 2 hours of video on chapter by chapter, chapter and verse of the Visionary Brand, and we've gotten some tremendous feedback on that as well. So I appreciate those that have actually taken the course and those, again, that have provided me feedback on the course and how they've applied it in their day-to-day. So very proud of that as well. So I always like to start out with a quote. This today is from Napoleon Bonaparte, and it says, "A leader is a dealer in hope." That's an awesome quote. I've never really heard anything like that, and what a great quote from Napoleon. A leader is a dealer in hope. Think about that. Many times we think of dealers in other terms, but this is a case where he's actually talking about hope. And when you talk about that, you're dealing hope. When you talk about people that you lead, when you talk about people that you inspire, you're really dealing in hope that what your vision is actually going to be achieved through them and with them and for them. And it's really a great principle that all visionary leaders have, is they talk about hope, they talk about vision, they talk about passion. They talk about these principles that normal leaders, but normal leaders, they don't really talk about it on a consistent basis, and one where it inspires their team to want to execute their vision. So we're going to talk about this today, really probably one of the more important Chronicles on the road to visionary leadership is leaving a legacy. Because let's face it, everybody wants to leave a legacy. But the question I get asked most often when I do this presentation is, Bryan, hey, what is a legacy? I mean, many people have different interpretations of what they feel a legacy is or is not. So in this 9th Chronicle, we'll focus on one of these aspects of leadership, leaving a legacy. And so when we talk about the road to visionary leadership, by design, I've done this as the last of the Chronicles. Chronicle number 9 is because this is really what your overall intent and goal as a visionary leader should be. Think about some of the visionary leaders, the vapor trails they've left behind and people still talk about today. The Thomas Edisons of the world, the Albert Einsteins of the world, the Steve Jobs of the world. They're long gone, but people still talk about them. So I have all of these leaders in my book, and I talk about them in depth. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Socrates, whoever it is, these are all visionary leaders regardless of their craft. And that's the other thing I talk about in the book as well, which hopefully you can appreciate, is that most people think about visionary leaders as business leaders. Well, that's true to a certain extent. Do we not think that Michelangelo is a visionary? Do we not think that Leonardo da Vinci is a visionary? So I talk about all these visionaries in my book, and hopefully you'll appreciate that I gave a broad mindset, let's say, of different visionary leaders. Do we not think that Socrates is a visionary leader? Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, all of these leaders I have in the book as visionary leaders. And probably the most profound of all was Jesus, was probably the greatest leader of all time. And so when you look at these visionary leaders, you have to expand your thought process around what encompasses a visionary leader and the principles behind what makes them visionary, or things that you can apply to your day-to-day. So we're going to talk about this legacy today. So the series, what I like to do in each one of these as well is give you a quick recap. So for those that haven't listened to or watched, we have this on video as well. The previous 8 Chronicles, I would highly recommend that you go back to these. Just selfishly, I would love to have you go back and look at them. But more importantly, I just feel it's important to get the context of what this road to visionary leadership is all about. So the first one was episode 184, Chronicle number 1, was about understanding visionary leadership and the mindset. This is where we explored the mental framework around defining visionary leaders, their ability to see beyond the present challenge, conventional thinking, inspire others to believe in a greater mission. So that was Chronicle 1. Number 2 is episode 186, where we talked about building a culture of innovation. We discussed how leaders create environments that foster creativity, experimentation, and fearless problem solving. That's a fun one. So make sure that you listen to that. Episode 187 was Chronicle 3, where we talked about strategic foresight that these visionary leaders have. And we examined how visionaries anticipate the future and strategically position their brands, their teams, their companies, whatever it is, for long-term success. Not just short-term thinking, but long-term success. So in episode 188, which is Chronicle 4, we talked about communication and inspiring greatness in your team. We emphasized the importance of clarity, influence, motivation, and leadership, because a vision without a communication is merely an idea. And that comes from humility. It comes from leaders not wanting to embrace the team and give them credit for successfully executing their vision, because that's what it comes down to. Episode 190 was Chronicle 5, Leading Through Change. We've all been through COVID now, and we've all been through change, whether it's your team, whether it's your brand, whether it's your company, whether it's growth, whether it's something else that was unanticipated. So it's a change. We tackled the challenge of navigating transformation, overcoming resistance, and turning disruption into opportunity for growth, because we talk a lot about people and brands and companies that actually took the COVID, what most people would consider a disaster, and turned it into an opportunity for growth. So these are who we talk about in Chronicle number 5. Number 6, number 191, was how to effectively communicate, inspire greatness. The ability to communicate effectively, inspire greatness in others is really a key principle that visionary leaders have, and not many have it. And Chronicle 7 was measuring and celebrating success. We explored in that one, often really an overlooked one, where we talk about the essential aspect of leadership, which is measuring and celebrating success. You can talk about ideas, but until you're able to measure success through an ROI, KPIs, whatever it happens to be, it's just an idea. And you have to make sure that you're managing that side of it as well. Just think of an idea for the iPod and it never got executed in the marketplace. Would it have just been an idea unless it was measuring and celebrating the success of this commercialization of the product through their team? And number 8, which was last week, was episode 193, which was we explored the defining characteristic of all great leaders, the ability to communicate, learn, and adapt. So today, again, just to recap, we're going to talk about the road to visionary leadership. The last in the series, number 9, is leaving a legacy. So when we talk about visionary leaders, they just don't build businesses. When we talk about a legacy, you have to remember, what is it exactly? These are leaders that create movements, inspire generations, and they really leave an enduring impact on the world through their voice and visually. So we talk visually and verbally a lot about these leaders. A legacy is more than just financial success or brand recognition, brand equity, whatever it happens to be. It's about the values, the innovations, and cultural shifts you leave behind for future leaders to build upon. And this is why I talk about brand a lot, and I talk about commodity a lot. And there's a lot of successful companies, I'm never going to call them a brand or commodities, that are financially successful, but I would never consider the leader as visionary because they're followers of visionary brands that have actually commercialized product that they follow. Nothing wrong with that, but that's a choice. But don't have brand as a badge of honor on a commodity company. So in this episode, we'll explore what it truly means to create a legacy, examine some of the greatest visionaries that have done it, and provide actionable insights on how we can shape a leadership legacy that lasts. We only got 20 minutes or so. So that's a mouthful, but I'll give you as much as I can. As I normally do, I give you the top subjects in each one of these, and we can expand upon that, and I usually do that through Q&A period that I have after the podcast been released. So the first question is, what does it mean to leave a legacy? And a legacy is not about personal success. Keep that in mind when you're looking to build a legacy. There's a lot of leaders, I'll just say business leaders, that have had a lot of financial success, but they have failed to leave a legacy. It's about the impact you leave for others. Now, if you go back in the Visionary Leader book, and if you look at the principles that are outlined in the book, a majority of those are built around leaving a legacy. For you to leave a legacy for you, your brand, company, or team. And it's how you leave your impact you have on others. Ask yourself a question on a day-to-day basis. What are you doing to have an impact on others? Are you humble enough to give them credit for a vision that you had laid out, but they actually executed and commercialized on that product? And that's just one way of impacting others, your ability to leave a legacy. And also, true visionaries focus on long-term influence rather than short-term wins, meaning that they've got this future casting, I call it, ability, and I have this in the book as well, where these leaders have the ability to anticipate the future. And think of all the companies that you've been with, leaders that you've been around. I'll bet you could count on one finger, maybe two, those that had this quality of future casting. They had the ability, outside of just looking at competition and anticipating the near term, but had no ability to anticipate the future. I call it the crystal ball leaders that have the ability to actually read the future and it comes to life. So true visionaries focus on long-term influence and rather than short-term wins. And the next is great leaders build cultures. Let's think about that for a second as well. When you were not growing up as a child, but when you were growing up in your companies, the brands you've been with, most people are at a company for 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 if you're loyal to the company. But what drew you into that company? If you're honest, it was the culture of that company that drew you in. So imagine the power of a visionary that understood that culture was a key component to the success of the company brand that you are building. So all visionaries, 100% of all visionaries in the book and those that have led businesses have a culture. I don't care if it's Gandhi. I don't care if it's Socrates. I don't care if it's Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, whoever it is. Think about these people that surrounded them and the companies that they built or the community that they built as a leader. So a culture is extremely important. So great leaders build cultures. They build brands. So first is they build cultures. The second, as a offshoot of creating a great culture through a visionary product, service, or strategy, they build great brands. But you cannot have a great brand without a great culture. So these two mesh with one another. And the next is they have philosophies that will outlive them, or principles we talk about that will outlive them. So culture, brand, and principles need to outlive you in order to leave a legacy. That's critical. So again, a legacy is not about personal success. Get over yourself. It's not personal success. It's about the impact you leave for others. I want you to think about that as a leader. You build great teams, passionate teams, those that believe in your vision and believe you to be authentic and are looking out for them and have their back are the ones that leave an impact and leave a legacy. True visionaries focus on long-term influence rather than short-term wins. Great leaders build cultures, brands, and have principles that outlive them. So these are all things that great leaders have. So what does this look like? What does this look like as a visionary leader that's left a legacy? And I'm sure you'll know all of these. And I could probably, in the book, I have 18 visionary leaders across multiple generations and hundreds of years. But all of them are different. That's what I love about the book. I didn't talk about just business leaders. In the Visionary Leader, we talk about great legendary business leaders like John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Steve Jobs, but we also talk about Gandhi, Jesus. We talk about Martin Luther King Jr., Abraham Lincoln, all of these great leaders. Think about the breadth of what a visionary leader looks at and expand your thought process. And by doing that, and the intent with the visionary leader is that you apply not just business principles, but personal life principles that matter in leaving a legacy. So some of these great leaders, Steve Jobs, he revolutionized technology and design, changing the way we interact with the world. He made a dent in the universe. It said what he wanted to do, and he did it. Walt Disney, he built a world of imagination that continues to inspire generations today. And that to me is the beauty of Walt Disney and Steve Jobs, is that they built a culture, but different types of cultures. One that appeals to another type of generation, but each successfully executing a legacy for themselves that continues to this day, that people talk about. And the third is Martin Luther King Jr. created a movement that reshaped civil rights and social justice. Peacefully, by the way. That's key. Martin Luther King was about nonviolent protests, and today we need to think about that in the world that we live in. And so he created this movement that reshaped civil rights and social justice in our world. So very different leaders, but all visionaries that have left a legacy that we can appreciate today. So what are some of the key, what I call pillars of visionary leadership? What are these boundaries of what makes up in the DNA of a visionary leader that leaves a legacy? So I put 5, but I know there's others out there, but I feel this is a priority. So what does this look like? The first is a purpose-driven leadership. And what does that mean? Many people think, well, it's very biblical. Yes, it is. But at the same time, it aligns actions with a greater mission. You have a purpose. What is your purpose as a company and as a brand? You need to ask that question. Without purpose, you have no being as a company or as a brand. So you need to make sure that you align your actions with a greater mission that's served through a purpose. What do you serve? Everybody has a purpose. Nike has a purpose. Adidas has a purpose. All these brands, these great brands, Patagonia for sure is probably the top of the list that has a purpose in what they do on a day-to-day. And that's ingrained into their culture, by the way. In the vision of who they are as a brand, when people join the company, that's the first thing they show them is this is our purpose as a brand. If you don't like it, you won't fit into our culture and you won't be successful. So always keep that in mind when you're building your culture, your brand is to have a purpose. Purpose-driven leadership is number one. Number two is innovation and impact. I put impact behind innovation because too many times, even commodity companies will talk about innovation. It's ridiculous. They have incremental improvements that are driven off of other people's innovations. So create something that reshapes an industry or a society. And I talk about society because the visionary leader, I have great societal visionary leaders that have left an impact, like Gandhi, like Socrates. And that's where you really need to have an impact. Just to create a great product that you think sells a ton of money. I talked about earlier, financial success does not make you a visionary leader, nor does it leave a legacy. And the third is empowering others. I love the word empowering because that's what I do with my company, Liquid Mind, is that we empower visionary leadership. We empower brands. And I love that word because it's about empowering other people other than yourself. This goes from being self-serving to humility to serve others. So build a foundation for future leaders to continue the mission and the vision that you've set for your brand so that you can leave a legacy with them and for them. Number 4 is always as a visionary leader. And this is the most challenging for visionary leaders who want to leave a legacy, is people will call bullshit on people that aren't authentic. So having authenticity and integrity is the 4th one. And I put them back to back for a reason, is you not only need to be authentic, but you need to have consistent integrity in everything that you do. So you want to stay true to values that define your leadership. So authenticity, integrity. Number 5 is sustainable growth. We go back to business on number 5. Is that you need to be a generational success, just not a one-hit wonder. So you may have one great product, but that does not make you a legacy brand or a legacy leader by that fact. So ensure that success is built to last, not just for today. So again, 5 key pillars of visionary leadership. 1 is a purpose-driven leadership. Number 2 is innovation and impact on the world. Number 3 is empower others. Number 4 is lead with authenticity and consistent integrity. Number 5 is sustainable growth for generations. Now, the next piece we'll talk about is how to build your own leadership legacy. So we talked about the pillars. That's the ideal of what the Steve Jobs of the world have, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s of the world have. They've got those 5. That's why they're not only visionary leaders, but they've left a legacy. So for you, the question goes back to your heart, your soul as a leader for your company or your brand. You know, how do you build your own leadership legacy? And I tell you, it's not easy to live up to those 5 pillars. But the first, let's just take these step by step. I'm going to give you 5 here as well. The first that you want to do is define your vision. And what do you want to be remembered for? And this is different. I put your in there. So normally I talk about setting the vision of the company or the brand. But at the same time, in order to leave a legacy, you need to define your vision. So what do you want to be remembered for? You need to understand that before you can become visionary first and leave a legacy second. And that's a hard one for people when we do our leadership, what we call session series with Liquid Mind, is when we ask that question, define your vision. And immediately, almost inevitably, what the leaders do is they'll go into whiteboarding saying, well, our vision is to establish X amount of revenue over X. I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not talking about the vision of the company or the brand. If you notice, what I said is, what's your vision for yourself? What do you want to be remembered for? What is your legacy? Post-mortem, what do you want people 5-10 years down the road to think about you? You need to be thinking about that in order to become visionary and leave a legacy for others to follow. Number 2 is lead with a purpose. And you'll notice how these match back to the key pillars, but they're different in how you apply them and because many times I get the question, how do I start? And you start by defining your vision. Number 2 is you lead with purpose. And what I mean by that is you just align your actions with the mission that extends beyond yourself, meaning that it's a very broad perspective of how you see your brand and yourself. There's a purpose behind what you're doing, and you can convey that purpose to people. But until you understand what that purpose is in defining your vision and understanding your purpose, we talked about that up as a key pillar, purpose-driven leadership, but you need to understand what your purpose is before you can lead with purpose. And number 3 is create meaningful change. Focus on long-term impact over short-term success. And I'll again use Patagonia on this. Patagonia leadership, Yvon Chouinard had a long-term impact, and it never changed. Over the whole time that he led and started up Patagonia, he, number 1, had a vision. Number 2, he led with purpose. Number 3, he knew that if the purpose was executed, he'd have a meaningful change, and he left a legacy. To this day, that's legendary. So focus on long-term impact over short-term successes. Nobody's ever left a legacy because of a short-term success or a one-hit wonder on a product. Think long-term impact. Mentor and inspire is number 4. And this again goes towards empowering others. Mentor and inspire. 99% of the time, I can tell you, and I could almost anticipate if I'm talking to you, is that mentor, they go, I don't have time to mentor people or inspire people. This is not done by putting it on your calendar. It's something that you do on a day-to-day basis without thinking about it. What are your actions? What is your purpose? How authentic are you? Do you have integrity on what you do in decisions and meetings that you're in with your team? That is mentoring. In almost every instance that I've been with a company, when I was with Oakley and when I was with Adidas, in all of these companies that I was with and companies that we talk with today and lead through our session series with Liquid Mind, is that great visionary leaders don't need to think about mentoring. That's just their day-to-day and who they are. Those that don't understand what mentorship means are the ones that say they don't have time. So it's your day-to-day actions, and that's why we go through these points here, is authenticity, integrity, and empowering others. And doing this on a day-to-day basis is mentoring, and it inspires people. Think for yourself a question. Back when you were starting out, who do you talk about to this day? And I'm sure there's an individual, I know it was for me, that really inspired me. Jim Gennard on my side with Oakley and Bob McKnight with Quicksilver. I mean, these were guys that had authenticity, integrity, and they empowered others, but they had an unbelievable vision for their companies. So mentor and inspire. Invest in people who will carry your vision forward. And number 5 is build something that endures. A legacy is not built in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither is your brand. It's crafted through consistent, intentional leadership. So build something that endures. So how do you build your own leadership legacy? 5 points here again. Define your vision, number 1. Number 2, you lead with purpose. Number 3 is you create meaningful change. Meaningful change. Number 4, day-to-day mentor and inspire. Don't plan it out. That's BS. Unless you have this in your personality, your DNA, that you're authentic, that you have integrity, that bleeds out in meetings, in your interactions with your team. Even a smile and a kind gesture to your team is authentic. And that's mentorship, because they'll take that with them when they leave your company, and they'll talk about it way beyond when they left the company. And number 5 is build something that endures. We talked about sustainable growth is a key pillar. How you do it is build something that endures. Not built in a day. It's crafted through consistent, intentional leadership that you'll provide. So when we talk about leaving a legacy, this is number 5 in the road to visionary leadership. A few thoughts that I had. And again, they're not all of them, but I feel they're probably the most important from the meetings that I've had with leaders, the sessions that we have. It's the questions I get asked the most. A true legacy isn't written in words, meaning you can't tell people what you want your legacy to be. It's built over time, it's authentic, and it's inspirational. It's etched into the lives you impact, the industries you transform, and the future that you've helped shape with your team. The greatest visionaries don't just exist in their time. They leave what I call a blueprint for future generations to follow. Think about again in your own leadership. I'm sure you had ideas from visionaries that we talked about today. I don't care if it's Edison. I don't care if it's Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Abraham Lincoln. There's some principles there that have carried forward that I'm sure are part of your leadership to this day. So make sure that you follow those. So again, I always want to thank you for tuning into the Visionary Chronicles. If you've enjoyed the series on the road to visionary leadership, and this episode in particular, please subscribe and stay updated on our latest insights that we have into leadership, innovation, and brand strategy. I always want you to stay visionary, and we'll see you in the next episode. And the next episode is 5 tips on how to develop a visionary strategy for sustained growth. Part of that principle we talk about in the key pillars of being a visionary leader and leaving a legacy. So again, the most important thing for me are those that reach out to me, you that reach out to me with questions that you have, and also how you applied what we talk about in the Visionary Chronicles. So please subscribe and leave a review if you can. It's always appreciated. And please also share this episode. There's a link in here with the network that you have, and we'll be able to together build this visionary leadership. And that's ultimately my goal with this podcast, is to be able to talk to you from experience, talk to you about books that I've written, not just have somebody on my episodes that I ask questions to. It's the great Vin Scully that once said, I'm the great storyteller of other people's stories. As legendary as Vince was, he understood that unless it came from somebody else, he didn't really have the experience. So hopefully you find that what I can provide is leadership principles for you to apply in your day-to-day. So as we wrap up this episode of the Visionary Chronicles, I'd mentioned it earlier. It was an exciting opportunity to share with you this upcoming book, The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries. It's nearing its release in July. We've gotten some great pre-release reviews. And I'm inviting you to be part of this journey if you don't mind. So if you'd like to receive an ebook, an advanced copy of the book, and share your thoughts as an early reviewer, you can claim your copy through Booksprout. We're up on Booksprout now, getting reviews there. It's a limited time offering. You'll see there's a claim reward that's limited. So get there as soon as you can to grab the ebook. And there'll be an ebook. So hopefully you enjoy that and you're able to claim your ebook, and would appreciate a review once you're complete. That can be on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whoever it happens to be, upon the release of the book. So until next time, keep innovating, keep leading, and keep shaping the future of your company or brand, service, whatever it happens to be. And thank you again for your continued support. And I always look forward to hearing from you. And I say, stay true, stay authentic, be different, but most of all, be great, but enjoy the journey along the way. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to the next Visionary Chronicles.